All right, good evening, everybody. I'll give everybody a few minutes to get started here. I'm not seeing my chat tonight, and that's not a good thing. Let me try to sort that out and get that figured out, because I know there'll be questions here this evening. Quick breakdown, a lot of things going on. I've got an interview with an Australian company here in a few hours, actually at midnight. And let me see if I can get this working. Because they're under severe attack to shut down their operations because they believe in free speech. Imagine that happening in our day and age. Let me try to get this here. Okay, there we go. All right, got it all back. We are ready to go. All right, I'm going to try to go ahead and get this thing up and running and get it smoothed out for you here today. Not as deep a dive into numbers as we normally would do. What I hope to cover today are the events that are currently happening, ranging from Diddy all the way through what's happening out in Damascus and Lebanon and all these other places right now. And then wrap up with my take on the Donald Trump World Financial Network, whatever it is, the Twitter space last night. I don't think he missed anything per se. Hopefully this microphone's working. I have all the wrong colors going right now. All right, looks like we are working. Important to note, I think that there's a lot of information we can gather just by paying attention to the things in the world. And right now, I'm going to go through that in the end, the things that I'm noticing in my world. And I don't know if your world is any better. I hope it is, because what I'm seeing right now is not a good thing in this country. We are watching a pure invasion happen at the hands of our government, being funded by the elite from around the world, and absolutely nothing is being done about it. And there's no way around that. That's just factual, evidential truth that exists in all areas of this country right now. But I think it's important to always start with money. This show is all about money, politics, and religion. The three things they tell you to never talk about. They happen to be the three most important things that you will ever talk about in your life. Every other conversation outside of money, politics, and religion is actually a waste of time. And that's what most people want you to do. So we're going to cut right to the chase and get to the bottom line. Now, the markets themselves, they speak volumes for what's happening right now. If you've been following me long enough, you know that I pay attention to everything from very esoteric information like cardboard production and the price of a Big Mac, things like that, all the way down to actual numbers with markets and leverage and volume. And I pay attention to everything. But I think today is a day to take a step back, because the holistic picture that we're seeing, the way that everything is kind of working together right now, tells a much larger story than the minute information or data that we're seeing in the world today. So we're going to take a step back and make things very simple. Right now, the last day, the day and a half of trading, we are seeing the 10-year treasury, the stock market, and the price of oil act exactly the same. They're all on a downward trajectory. There's nothing that anyone can say to defy that logic. Those three things moving together is a very unusual event. As I talked about in our episode yesterday, it's extremely unusual to see in what most people would consider a normal or good market era, like what we're seeing in the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, the Dow, all-time highs everywhere. But yet those all-time highs still don't have any individual premise or supremacy over two commodities. So Bitcoin and gold are the top two performing asset classes in the world for the last month, or for the last year, last 12 months, not year to date, but the last 12 months. Now, when you start seeing things like the 10-year treasury start to fall in direct coordination with the stock market and the price of oil, I'm going to try to break down, I guess, conspiratorially a little bit here of what I believe is happening. First and foremost, I think it's important to understand that all markets are rigged. Doesn't matter what they are or what you're trading, they're all rigged, because there is a small percentage of the globe that controls a major percentage of the money. And when that happens, they can leverage that money and take losses in order to get themselves cheaper prices on things that you would pay a lot more money for. This is happening right now in Bitcoin. This has been happening in gold for the last 2.5 years. Gold is moving off the shelf. So is Bitcoin, moving off the shelf faster than you'll ever find, yet the prices aren't moving the way that the volume is speaking. That denotes to me that while these commodities are being purchased in mass quantity pretty rapidly, generally speaking, for the time we live in, and the prices are stagnant or a slow incline, what's basically happening right now is you have these people with lots of money, central banks, elites, whatever you want to call them, and they will give money to traders to use the market to short something to keep the price suppressed so that they buy it cheaper than you ever will. Now, I think Bitcoin is absolutely in that bandwidth right now. I think Bitcoin's getting ready to move pretty significantly. To explain to you what's been happening there, Bitcoin has a finite supply. So right now, currently, there are only 450 Bitcoin that ever get minted per day. So it's all built into the system. You've got to earn Bitcoin. No one gets it for free. And right now, there are only 450 Bitcoin per day produced in the entire world. So very scarce asset. The supply has gone from 2.6 million on the exchanges to a little under 1.8 million since February. Very short period of time. Whether you like Bitcoin or hate Bitcoin doesn't really matter. You're never going to find a more scarce asset with a higher valuation of it's 1.2 trillion dollars. You're never going to find that opportunity before the banks have that opportunity. So take advantage. Gold, no different. Gold is certainly at its all-time high, over 2,600. The actual price of gold without paper manipulation and the ability to short gold while they buy it, this is exactly what, if you're rooting for any central bank in any country, whether it's America or BRICS or whoever it is, you are falling for a deception that has been around since the advent of the central bank. They will always try to play as though they're going to do the next thing to save you, but it's never been the case in human history. So be cautious with where you throw your emotions and your loyalty, as well as your hope. Now, in the gold market, we've watched this happen for well over 2.5 years, but in reality, it's been about 17 years since the gold market has really been papered up. So for every 1 ounce of gold that's physical gold available, these bankers will sell 100 contracts against it. There's actually no way, if everyone cashed in their gold at the same time, there'd be about 1 or 2% supply for the demand that's available. Bitcoin's really no different. It's kind of why they call it digital gold. It takes a lot of money to manipulate. But seeing these three things fall in direct correlation, the 10-year treasury, oil, and the stock market, watching them move in the same direction is an indicator of recession or depression in every single category of finance in the history of the world. We are waiting tomorrow for the FOMC, for the meeting to come out to determine whether Powell is going to drop interest rates by a 1/4 point or a 1/2 point, or actually listen to Pocahontas, the lunatic Elizabeth Warren, and go 0.75. This will accompany with a short-term barrage of hopium. People will be glad that rates are dropping. Their credit card payment will go down slightly. The price of government payback, or the amount of money we're paying in interest, will drop slightly. I anticipate them doing 2, if not 3 raises, maybe an emergency raise before the election to drop rates and gather more votes for the left. I see this stuff all happening pretty simply. But it's important to note that these are indicators. Markets are indicators. They're a lagging indicator to reality, and they always have been, and they always will be. In fact, the only thing that electronics have done to markets is pick up the pace of how long they lag between reality and between the actual perception that's given in the marketplace. So why are these three things lagging? Well, of course, there's obviously the treasury is lagging because other countries are no longer buying our debt. They're buying their own. And right now what's happening is you're looking at the stablecoin market, which I'll explain a stablecoin to you really quickly. A stablecoin is essentially something that's designed to not change price. It's a cryptocurrency, a coin that holds a $1 US dollar valuation period. Now, the way that they work is pretty genius. So what they do is you give them $1 million, put $1 million into a stablecoin. They're going to take $650,000 and go buy a U.S. Treasury at 3.5%. They're going to keep the 3.5%, maintain your $1 status, and then they'll put some money in Bitcoin and in precious metals and things like that. And all their accrual properties, all the value that they create for the stablecoin company keeps, and you get to maintain a $1 buying value with a stablecoin. Now, to understand how that works and where it fits into an economy, these are new demand centers for bad debt. That's what they are. So there are some people who love the stablecoin idea. I don't particularly get it. There's really no difference between a stablecoin and $1 in your checking account. That's a reality check for people. It is cool that it's crypto and it can move on a blockchain and it can be tracked and traced and monitored and verified. That part is awesome. Like I'm a big advocate of that. But people looking at these things and thinking that they're what they are is a gateway drug to other crypto or to hopefully to Bitcoin. So they're a good thing and a bad thing. But what they really are for the U.S. government is they are a new sinkhole for bad government debt. So while the BRICS nations are no longer buying our debt, stablecoin companies absolutely are. And the ones that tell you they aren't or don't intend to is a complete lie. That's how they're going to get their approval from the government is to be a new demand center so that our government can continue to keep selling bad debt into new companies. That's what stablecoins are, in my opinion, and that's where I believe that they fit into the marketplace. So they're neither good nor bad. They're just things that people need to understand. And they do give you a good intro into crypto and managing a wallet, using transactions on blockchain. They're really good advocates for opening up the door for cryptocurrency. And I'm going to get into that in just a minute. But what we're looking at right now with this downward slide of these very big anomalies, two commodities being the best returns in the market while the markets are actually hitting all-time highs, 10-year treasury, oil, and stocks starting to move in the same direction. We've watched the stock market and gold market move in coordination for the last 3 years now. That is something that has never happened in all of human history previous to this. Usually when the stock market's down and the dollar's down, gold is up. They have been moving together for many, many years now, and we're watching them start to bifurcate and separate from one another, which is a good thing for money because it'll create more predictability. And that's what the markets are telling me right now, is predictability is very easy to see. So I'm going to tell this story in a roundabout way and not just go strictly into money, then into politics, because today it's literally all intertwined, and I think we all need to understand that it's always been intertwined. So you need to pay attention to all of geopolitical, domestic politics, the markets themselves, trends in the marketplace or the economy. Pay attention to it all. And if you don't know what that trend would lead to or what it indicates, ask somebody who does and really learn and educate yourself along the way. I want this show to always be beneficial and educational. There's plenty of people who do entertaining and speculative, but I try to stay on more of the informative and educational if I possibly can. So let's look at the overall economy. Right now, longshoremen who have been without a contract in Long Beach for over 2 years right now, and these are just rumors. I haven't talked to my contacts today, but there are rumors now that they're really starting to impose a potential strike. Boeing workers are going on strike. We have 600,000 Americans that need to work 2 full-time jobs just to put food on the table. We have about 3.5 million Americans right now that are working 2 part-time jobs or a full-time job and a part-time job to put food on the table. We have very strong economic indicators that lead me to believe that the beginning of the next slide, and I don't believe that it's a recession because I believe that we're in a recession in every possible area of the economy, with the exception of the manipulated stock markets that exist today. Most people don't know that we actually have government programs and slush funds that feed the stock market to make it go up when it's normally going down, to buy when other people are selling. When everyone's selling, the government's buying. This is why about 52% of our overall economy has a direct tie to government spending or government interference. I don't know if you know this or not, but we're already in socialism and we're already in a recession. And every single person who goes on CNBC will never come on the show to debate me about that. That is a guarantee, but those are the facts. Now, in the middle of this, we can look at how all depressions have begun. 1929, 1987, you can look at the stock market crash of 2000, 2008. They're all the same. They're all the same story. It's ignorance is bliss. The ignorance of most people in the markets themselves, the bliss comes from their ignorance. So I put money in the stock market. Like I talked about yesterday, the average stock market holding per family is $237,000 in stock market money. That's double where it was last year. It's not double because things went up. It's double because people keep putting more money in. People are trying to gamble their way out of inflation, and that's a normal thing. It's not a bad thing. We all have to do it. But when we start looking at true depressions and where they began, 1928 was one of the best years in America financially. 1986 was an amazing year for America financially, because financially America only thinks about an economy as a stock market. 1999 was the best year ever to own stocks, especially tech stocks. 2006, 2007 were the best years ever for real estate that you will ever find in the history of mankind. All of them led to irrational exuberance. And irrational exuberance is exactly what we're living through right now. Well, the stock market's at an all-time high. It's always going to go up, despite the fact it's never been finite. Things that go up forever are always finite. The price of anything that can continually go up forever must be finite. The more supply there is, that means demand needs to increase with every new production. Gold is going to go through this because all the gold miners are starting to activate their mines again. And that means more gold will hit the market and the price of gold will dip for a period of time, though I thoroughly expect to see a $3,000 price per ounce of gold by the end of the year. And that's being fairly conservative with what I see coming. So depressions all begin the same way. The previous year before it started, no one could see it because they were blinded with ignorance and bliss. If you really pay attention to these things, and this is actually, fortunes aren't made in good markets. Fortunes are made in crisis. And if you have the wherewithal and the aptitude and the attention span to pay attention to where we are, you may just be one of those people who makes a lot of money when things go wrong, because things are absolutely going to go wrong. So on top of clear supply chains, and by the way, Ezra Cohen Watnick, if you follow him on Twitter, a former intelligence guy in the government, he posted out today that our supply chains are in trouble. That's the first time that I have heard that from anyone but me, with any sort of stats or data behind it. We have freight companies closing like crazy, packaging and shipping companies laying people off. We have almost 1,000 trains have been derailed in the last 3 years. We have flights that don't take off on time. We have difficulty at all of our shipping areas. Our ports are a complete mess. Those guys there who work there, longshoremen, some of the best workers you'll find in the world, but they are not being led by anyone of any intelligence level. And we are watching big problems brewing in supply chain. And by the way, America in 2024 is completely dependent upon all supply chains for food, comfort, clothing, fuel, heat, cooling, energy. It's all dependent upon the supply chain. And we're starting to see some bigger names talk about these potential problems moving forward. Now, every depression begins the same. Do they end the same? No. Do they have the same duration? No. But a true depression, not just a recession. Recession is the little brother of big brother depression. And at the end, you're looking at about 10 to 12 years from some of the biggest depressions till a full recovery. And in other instances, you're looking at, a year to 18 months. But I believe, and this is just my speculation, my opinion, we are heading into that environment right now where a depression is certainly a possibility. And I would pay attention to that very closely because, again, if you aren't blissfully ignorant and you are steadfast and attentive, you can actually come out of these things really, really well. And that'll generally come from tangible assets. So politics, we have a lot of things happening. So we have a Trump assassination attempt on Sunday, followed by P. Diddy being arrested, followed by Ghislaine Maxwell, her appeal being denied, her sentence being fully reinstated, which is a fantastic thing. And then in the middle of all this, we have beeper bombs going off throughout the Middle East, and Israel is now using handheld electronics for explosive devices. I'm going to get into that in a minute because it's a good thing and it's a bad thing and it's a real bad thing all at the same time. Depending on, I don't care where you stand either. I have my opinions on things. I don't think any country waging war against innocent people, whether they are jihadis or Jewish people or Americans, waging war against innocent civilians is never the right thing to do, period. Read your Bible. God commands peace, not the destruction of enemies. And there are enemies that need to be destroyed, but they are not a blanket statement, and they are not everyone there. It's like blaming everyone in California for all the liberal problems of California. California is mostly red. Go outside the big cities. They're good people with their heads on the ground. They're not trying to mutilate your children and change their sex at school. We have a tendency in today's world to grab our pitchforks for anything, and that tendency to grab pitchforks is directed in the wrong, absolutely wrong direction 99% of the time, because the people who rile you up to grab your pitchforks are exactly the people you need to be going after, and that's the real problem in this country. So when we're watching this happen, there's the assassination attempt, and like I said on the first assassination attempt, the media would immediately go into blaming Donald Trump for people wanting to kill him, despite the fact that they are propagandizing the entire world to make him think that he's the most evil man ever and he'll destroy everything, and you can't go to school, you can't be gay. He hasn't done anything to prove that this would be the case whatsoever, but that's the media trend. It got worse yesterday when they said that it's his own words, the Cincinnati Enquirer. If you ever find that publication, please feel free to put them on blast and let everyone know just how corrupt and convoluted their headlines are. We also have newspapers coming out and saying the same thing. Well, it's his rhetoric. He shouldn't do it. He should stop talking, and then no one would want to kill him. Well, today we saw Karine Jean-Pierre basically walk off stage and deny the fact that, Harris and Biden have both been saying that, we need to stop him. He's a threat to democracy. They're both on camera, either saying they want to drag him out back and beat him or kill him in an elevator. It's like, these aren't make-believe scenarios. This is how evil works. If you allow evil into your heart, evil will control your mind. That's just basically how the world works from a spiritual perspective. And we have a lot of people, because every gateway in this world has evil, and it opens up doorways in our souls that we don't want open, but we don't even realize we open them. The things we support, the things that we embellish upon, the things that we really drive towards, we really need to get better at funneling that down to find out whether or not what we're focusing on is good and pure, like it says in the Bible. It's a very important part of life that all of us overlook from time to time, all of us. However, the media getting more blatant with their propaganda from The View to everywhere else. So this problem's not going away. They are not capitulating, and they are not changing their tune. They are cranking up the volume and trying to cause more chaos. This is obvious. Now, of course, there's the distraction, right? So there's the Trump assassination, which took about 4.5 hours to actually get on mainstream media from what I can recall. I was not paying attention that day. I was with my family and enjoying a Sunday of no social media and no news. But when I look back and look at the records of when it actually hit the news, about 4.5 hours after it happened, within 24 hours, P. Diddy gets arrested and detained, completely distracting from the second assassination attempt. That was going to happen anyway. The lawsuit, if you've had a chance to read it, if not, there's a guy named Ian Carroll on Twitter who does just an incredible job breaking things down factually, and he'll be very clear with you on what is speculation or theory versus what is fact. And I think that's a very important piece of criteria for any citizen journalist, especially in today's world. But Ian Carroll does a great job breaking it down. This case has everything from racketeering. It is a RICO case. RICO has no statute of limitation. So if you created RICO crimes 100 years ago, if you were still alive, you could be prosecuted for it, unlike murder, rape, these other things that have statute of limitations. This is a RICO case, which means it's not just about P. Diddy, Sean Combs, and P. Diddy's a stupid name, Sean Combs. And at the same time, you have implications in the lawsuit ranging from Jay-Z to all across every bit of celebrity. Music by itself has been tainted and contorted by demonic entities. All you have to do is listen to music from 1960 and listen to music today. In fact, the best way to talk about the music industry is an exact example that they gave us in order to determine who they actually are. So Baby It's Cold Outside is a song about a man who goes on a date with a girl, Christmas song, everyone loves it, Baby It's Cold Outside. It's about a man who wants to stay with this girl after their date is over so that maybe he could get a kiss. And I think every man in the world has been there, and I think that every woman in the world wants a man who wants to hang around and try to get a kiss. Well, they tried to ban that song because it was misogynistic and all that stuff. At the exact same time, the number one song in the country was called WAP, and I won't regurgitate what WAP stands for, but it's the most disgusting, vile, overly sexualized prostitution song that I've ever heard in my life. So they will support that, but they want to get rid of Baby It's Cold Outside. That tells you pretty much everything you need to know about the intentions of the music industry, which you can watch with your own eyes. The deterioration of society is always a rhythm. It goes through the mind. What goes through your mind is what goes through your heart. And it's what you believe in. It becomes what you're part of. This is why on every battle march throughout every war in history, there's always a drummer who is playing a rhythm, putting it in their mind, and there's strong rhythms for war. They want people to feel strong and brave. Or at times you could look at, like, go to church. They play music before. It's called worship music. It gets you in the mood. The same philosophy of worship music or battle anthems is used in everyday life. And look at the radio, look at the television, look at any concert you can think of. Our music is garbage. And I'm not saying that because I'm older now. I'm saying that because it's garbage. It is very surface level, shallow information from the lyrics, and it's the exact same tones and chords in the beat that actually lower the vibration of a human brain. This is statistically true, and it's done by design, and it's guys like Sean Combs who have been running the music industry and promoting this stuff to your children. Now, there's the massive debate, right? Will he get Epsteined? I don't know. Will he rat people out? Probably, but I don't know. I very much have a very strong track record for the last 3-4 years, however long this has been, of being patient before I make a decision, being patient before I have an opinion. And my opinion of Sean Combs is take him down, take everybody else that's with him down. They're harming children. This is racketeering, sex trafficking, and transportation of prostitution. So essentially, you are sex trafficking by enslaving people and then transporting them throughout the country to be sex slaves. These are the lowest form of human beings that exist. And whatever is coming his way, he deserves every bit of it. And anybody involved with him You should take note right now and try to save your skin. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. And I don't know if he's singing like a canary or if he's, there or not, or if he's wearing a mask. It doesn't matter. What does matter is that he was publicly incarcerated and the judge denied his bail. So he is in prison until he goes to trial. And that's exactly the way criminals should be treated who have this much evidence against them. Now, of course, they found 1,000 small containers of lube at his home. The evidence is pretty overwhelming, especially we have no idea what they found in his homes when they raided them months ago. But what we do know is that they raided 2 of his homes and he's been out on the street ever since. This guy should have been locked up. That if what you've done has enough evidence where a federal agency will actually raid your home, you are a menace to society, at least on an accusation standpoint, and you should be locked up until you have the legal bounds to actually be set free until your trial. And that didn't happen with him because he's wealthy. So he was allowed to stay free. Now he's in prison. Great stuff. Ghislaine Maxwell still in prison. Is she talking? I don't know. Is Epstein still alive? I actually think so. As crazy as that sounds to some of you on the show. But will we hear from him? I don't know. Megyn Kelly alluded to it and other people have, but that's not up for me to figure that out. It's just to figure out what's happening. So along with this, we also have these huge strikes that are coming with longshoremen, Boeing. We have unrest in the entertainment industry, which many people are over-tied to. There are literally people who think they are friends with Taylor Swift because they listen to her album. I'm tired of hearing about Taylor Swift. I don't care who she votes for. She's irrelevant in the world. She has some talent, I suppose, but I don't think that she, when people come out with albums, my daughter loves Taylor Swift. And when they come out with albums and people love their music, what seems to happen, this is how the music industry works, they seem to change over time. I was a little girl, now I'm an adult, so I'm going to do these things in my music while little girls still listen. I'll give you an exact example from my house. So my daughter's birthday party in June, they were outside in the pool, music jamming, and it was Taylor Swift, so not all that worried about it. But I did hear them all singing the lyrics and dropping an S-bomb. These are 11-year-old kids. So I came outside and I said, "What are you listening to?" And so listen, you have to turn this off. When did Taylor Swift start cursing, knowing little girls listen to her album? This is how it works. It's no different than Little Nas, with Old Town Road, and then all of a sudden he has devil shoes and devil music and he's twerking with the devil in hell. They use this stuff to contort the minds of people and to demoralize society. Like I talked about yesterday with Yuri's interview in 1984, the process is simple: demoralize, destabilize, crisis, normalize. We are in between destabilize and crisis as we speak. And that volume on crisis is cranking up because Zelensky came out on television and basically said point blank that he is ready to strike deep within Russia. Russia has already said that they will use any military capability they have to defend their territory, to defend their nation. And I quite frankly don't blame them. They are being attacked on all fronts by the entire world for trying to liberate people who a genocide was being committed against. This is the exact same thing that happened in World War II, by the way, the exact same scenario. But instead of a sliver of Poland where Germanic Poles were being slaughtered by corrupt Bolshevik Polish people, I know you were told it was the Germans, but they weren't there. The Bolsheviks were slaughtering, the Polish Bolsheviks were slaughtering Poles of German descent. Hitler wanted to take back that region to save his people. It's no different than Lugansk and the Donbass region, where they were slaughtering all people of Russian descent, 13,000 of them. So they asked Putin to come in and liberate them. This is the exact same scenario as World War II. Exact. Now, on top of that, we have this pager bomb that happened in Israel. And this is going to be quite the contentious statement to make. Now, there are of course, the Jewish people, the Zionists in the world are applauding this. The Muslims are angry. I'm a Christian and I'm an American, so that's my point of view. But what I'm seeing here is that we are now applauding a bunch of bombs going off in pockets, which, by the way, with a lithium ion battery. I know this because I have a friend who has a patent on bomb-proof, fireproof technology that airlines are now hiring him to build so that when you get on a plane, you can actually take a lithium-ion battery, because if it blows up in that box, it's not going to do anything to the aircraft. I know that that's real. You do not need explosives or a 4-gram C4 block within a cell phone to make it explode. What you need is an ability for it to overheat, and you can do that through frequency training fairly easily. Now, the mere fact that the pagers that blew up, from what we know, and again, if true, from what we know, were only in the pockets and hands and handbags of people associated with Hezbollah, which means Hezbollah is in Lebanon, funded by Iran. So in order to figure out which terrorists have these pagers in their pocket, you had to have known someone in Iran or in Lebanon that orchestrated this targeted event. That's pretty much a fact. On the other hand, we have people cheering for this. Now, listen to me. Like, when bad people vanish from the earth, and there are bad people on all sides of everything. I know that the old Trump hoax is that there were fine people on both sides. That's actually true. Not everyone on everything is horrible. There are also bad people on every side of everything. There are bad people in Israel. There are bad people in Palestine. There are bad people in the United States. There are bad people. And when they vanish from the earth on justified means, I have no problem with it, because it's not my problem. That's now God's problem. It's up to him to accept or deny their entry into heaven, not my decision to make. However, it's never a bad thing when proven terrorists are taken out. Like, we don't want terrorism in this world, period. That's never a bad thing. Here's what the bad thing is. The bad thing is, if anyone can make a lithium-ion battery explode, and there's a lithium-ion battery in your pocket all day long, and you happen to be speaking or regurgitating the wrong rhetoric, like on this podcast right now, where this phone next to me has now become a weapon, what is happening around the world, what people don't realize is that we live in a manufactured consent matrix. This matrix we live in is all about manufactured consent. 9/11 was absolutely an inside job. And what happened after that? They manufactured your consent to approve the Patriot Act, which has nothing to do with protecting patriots, but it will be used to put patriots in prison. We are now watching the next phase of manufactured consent, where a device that literally every human being on the planet holds in their hand can now be a weapon of mass destruction and take your life. Am I happy people died today? Absolutely not. Am I happy that terrorists and terrorism was cut down in some capacity today? Absolutely. Am I happy that the world is cheering this and that people from Israel are taunting people from Palestine and from Damascus? It wasn't just Lebanon, it was also in Syria. They are taunting these people who have already attacked. So we are watching a manufactured consent for three different things. We have a manufactured consent for a larger scale war. We have manufactured consent for more warfare within the Middle East. And we now are getting manufactured consent to turn our own devices into weapons in our own pockets. This is something that I got flack for posting it today, but Edward Snowden made a very cogent point today. He actually came out and said this on Twitter. He's like, this is a slippery slope. That means your computer, your cell phone, your pager. I don't know who's still, a pager is kind of like the modern day fax machine. So if it wasn't killing innocent people next to them, I'd be all for blowing up pagers. Haven't had one since the 90s, but I guess people still use them. And they use them because there's less tracking capabilities. All you know is who paged you. Then you make a phone call from somewhere else. It makes it very difficult for them to find you. So pagers actually are pretty useful devices in an era of uber surveillance state. Now, nobody's surveilled more than those in the Middle East and anywhere around Israel. So that makes sense to me why they'd have them. But at the same time, they are now trying to manufacture our consent to use our everyday appliances against us as weapons at any time. I don't think anyone in the world should be cheering or applauding this, because the numbers that have come out, I think 8 died, about 1,000 were injured, 2,000 or 3,000 were injured, and about 800 seriously in critical condition. Now, if those are terrorists, so be it. But you know that little kid standing next to him in the market where it blew up? That kid's not a terrorist yet. He still has a shot at being a good person. You know, the people who are driving on the road, Snowden made this great point. They don't know where those pagers were. How many of them blew up in somebody's pocket while they were driving, and how many innocent people got killed in those cities because of that? This is not a conventional war by any stretch of the imagination, nor is this an accidental war. This is a war that's being designed and created to manufacture consent of the masses for us to be able to destroy one side or the other, as opposed to trying to find peace and arresting those who are bad. I know that there's this bloodlust that exists, especially during frustrating times. And by the way, a falling economy is going to create more bloodlust. So as we see people lose their wealth and lose their income and lose their ability to feed their family, they're going to want blood because no one ever puts it on themselves. No one is ever accountable for their own bad decisions. It has to be someone else's fault. Governments do it. We do it. Society's been trained to do it. It's how it works the whole way through. So I expect conflict to multiply. They also just brought in Syria into the war because a lot of those pager bombs went off in Syria. Are there terrorists in Syria? Absolutely. Are there innocent people in Syria? Absolutely. Did innocent people get impacted by these bombs? Absolutely. Those three things put together triggers larger scale war. This is something that is desired by the powers that be because their economies are falling apart and they want to distract you in every possible way, inflict fear, and be able to control you another step further. If you don't pay attention to this, you will be eaten up by it and swallowed by the beast. They want you to be fearful, angry, and full of bloodlust, especially when your money is being destroyed in the markets. This is an absolute easy thing to see in the way that societies are manipulated and controlled and propagandized to hate one side or the other, when in reality, neither side has anything to do with you at all. So we can talk about these international wars and things that happen right now, but the Secret Service was just on camera saying that due to looming geopolitical conflicts, they expect things to get kinetic in America very soon. So you can spend all day waving an Israeli flag or a Palestinian flag. You can do that all day long. Eventually, that fight is coming to your backyard. And that's where I want to go with this tonight before I get into the crypto stuff, because it's important to understand how media and brainwashing work. They want you to be concerned about things that are of no concern to you so that the concerns that you have are never answered. That's how politics works. That's the reality. The best politician in the world will get you so angry at terrorists or so angry at Jewish people or angry at Ukrainians or angry at Russians that you're not actually angry at the things that are happening in your backyard. Now, I just took my daughter to dance and I took my son to boxing. And while I did that, I drove on very, very, country roads around here. I live in a small town in Texas. And on these small roads, you're not going more than 40 miles an hour. You can see who's passing you. I happened to notice today for the first time that I passed about 50 cars on my way there and back, and over half of the people in those cars didn't look American to me. Now we have a lot of Indian people who've moved here, someone in the Indian faith blessed land near me. Now we have a ton of Indian people here. Many of them were wearing headdresses. Many of them were clearly from Central or South America or Mexico. I live in Texas. It doesn't look like Texas here. Does where you live look like where you are from? Does America look anything like what it did 40 years ago? I know we're a melting pot, and we've been told that a melting pot is the best thing in the world, but a melting pot that's oversaturated in certain areas is by design created for civil unrest, period. You're seeing what's happening in Springfield, Ohio. I get a lot of intel. I don't really share a lot of it because I want to be able to, compose it and put it into a story that's palatable. But I got two pieces of intel. One of them popped up on my chat today that was kind of a confirmation. But one of the pieces of intel I got today was a photo of an actual two Haitians that didn't make a car payment. Their car was repoed. And at the repo center, a American nonprofit organization came in and bought their car out of repo. They got into their car and they went back to work at the post office. These are illegal Haitians that during that time at the repossession center where they're waiting to get their car back that we paid for, the car that we paid for, while someone else came to pay to get it out on their behalf, they bragged about how much money they were getting from this government and that they got a great job at the post office. Now, the post office, isn't that where, what's his name? I forget his the guy. I'm young for this, but the honeymooners. He was a postman, right? That's what he did. He worked at the post. That was a good job for people back then. Well, now we have Haitians working at the post office. By the way, the post office is the one who handles every single mail-in vote in this country, and now we have confirmation that Haitians are working government jobs at the post office. At the same time, I got a phone call from a friend of mine on the West Coast who said that he had been hearing from multiple people that there are illegals setting fires in the mountains in California. I actually had a video pop up on my chat of a guy who I don't know if it's real or not from him. Again, this is if true. This is just intelligence I get from normal people. I'm not some secret spy. These are just friends of mine calling me, telling me what they're seeing with their own eyes, because that's the best way to tell where we're at. Now, apparently, if true, Jackie Gleason, yes, thank you, Storm Chaser. Jackie Gleason, Ed Norton, was that his name? Or Ed, I forgot his name. Honeymooners guy, Jackie Gleason. I always remember him as The Hustler. That was one of my favorite movies. But when we hear this stuff coming from people we know, who I know this person calling me from the West Coast for 20 years, and I have great conversations with, great relationship. He knows that I'm doing these podcasts. I actually thought I was a lunatic doing this 3 years ago, but he said, yeah, hey, I've heard from 3 different people in the firefighting departments that illegals are being paid to set these fires in the mountains. This is now costing upwards of $400 million to put these things out. So these are not certain times. In fact, these are the most uncertain times in the history of the United States, and we are not getting this local intelligence from anywhere else. This is what we've got to be able to do. If you see something, say something. If you see something out there, DM me on Twitter, hit me up on Telegram, send me pictures, give me a description. I'll share this with the world. I'll take that gamble if you don't want to do it, because if we don't have this information coming in, now we got a lot of them on TikTok, guys in Chicago. You know, I'm from Chicago. We don't keep our mouths shut. That's just not how Chicago operates. Now, plenty do. There's plenty of lefties that don't say anything. But your average, South Sider, West Sider, South Suburbs person, we're pretty boisterous, and we'll tell the truth the way it is, regardless of whether or not you like us. And we're starting to see a lot of these videos coming out of Chicago where people are getting very, very angry. And they're, quite frankly, not angry enough, because an episode I'm going to do next week about the sports industry. Let me walk you through what's happening in Chicago. So they've taken on $1 billion worth of debt to be able to take in migrants. The current mayor is still asking for more migrants, because every time he gets money from the federal government to take in migrants, all of his buddies who own the housing centers, the distribution centers, the immigration centers that get paid by the government, he's getting a kickback. That's an accusation that I'd be more than happy to go to court, because I'd love to see his actual books and records and all of his offshore accounts, because that's just the way it works. On top of this, because the crime is so bad in Chicago, they're trying to build a new football stadium for the Chicago Bears, who just got a football stadium 20 years ago. So when I was watching the Bears game with my father this weekend, who unfortunately I'm a lifelong Bears fan, and we're terrible. So we talk a lot more than we watch because they're not so good. But during the game, they had mentioned, hey, they're trying to pass a new bill to build a new Bear stadium. Well, the only reason they're building a new Soldiers Field is because the crime is so high within the city, they have to build it in the suburbs to be able to protect people who go to that game. Why is the crime so much higher now than it was just a few years ago? Wouldn't have anything to do with the open borders, but of course it does. But here's the way this works. Stadium financing. This is something China taught America, and American businessmen have taken this and run. I live in Dallas, so I'm very well aware that Jerry Jones is the land baron of this region. He owns about 80% of everything because he never has to pay for anything. It's easy to own things, Jerry, when you don't have to pay for things. Because here's how stadium financing works. Here's what they're doing to you, Chicago, my hometown. They want to build a new stadium. It's going to cost $1.2 billion. They're never going to pay $1.2 billion for that. What they're going to do is they're going to tax you. They're going to take a loan from the federal government at a certain percentage. They're going to raise your taxes to pay the interest so they don't have to make the payments. And as soon as they get the $1.2 billion from the federal government, they're going to hire all their crony capital buddies that do concrete, that do steel, the guys who do electrician, plumbing, video, audio. All those guys are going to charge 60% more than they would in any other gig. They're going to fill the contract. They're going to split that profit with the local politician. They make money. You get taxes raised. And primarily, most of you Bears fans won't give a crap because now the Bears have a new stadium and you have a brand new distraction that'll ever keep you from revolting. In 1984, George Orwell said, "Their minds shall be occupied with beer and football to a point that they will no longer revolt." This goes back to the Roman Empire, where Caesar said the same thing: give them bread and circus, and they shall never revolt. This is what's happening in America, and crony capitalism is super easy to see. I can see it in the town next to me when they got their $20 million for COVID, which they didn't need. One company got the contract for $21 million. They did half the work that was needed, which means that half of that money was pocketed and split up amongst the councilmen and the city councilmen and the entrepreneurs and the guys who built things. Good for them. They have a job, but they got paid the same while everybody else above them got a ton more money. This is what's happening to America. America is vanishing before our eyes. It really is. It's being vanished by silence, by corruption, by infiltration, by invasion, and by demoralization, which ultimately leads to instability, which is where we are now, approaching the era of crisis. That is where we are. Now, when crisis comes, as I said, the Secret Service came out today and said geopolitical events may lead to civil kinetic warfare. Not in those terms, I'm paraphrasing probably horribly, but it was pretty much to that tune. This comes at a time where a specific topic I've been talking about for 3 years now comes into play. Earlier this morning on oilprice.com, they did a great, if you're interested in the oil and gas industry, oilprice.com is probably the best website. Really good information, very unopinionated, factually driven information. And on oilprice.com, they wrote an article saying the SPR needs to be refilled at prices today while they're cheap, but the government doesn't have any money. How can a government who prints money never have any money? Well, the fact is the government doesn't print money. A private Western central bank prints money. They loan it to the government. They exchange that for treasuries, which means they now own our debt and our equity. And then that money runs out eventually and they're going to have to borrow more. So if pager bombs lead to a larger scale war in the Middle East, it's a guarantee we'll be sending another $24 billion to Israel to protect their borders while ours are invaded. We will send another $24 billion, and we'll probably send about 15 to 20,000 of our young men over there to die in the Middle East for a conflict that has nothing to do with us. That's probably coming. If it's not with Syria and with Lebanon, who have direct impact, it'll be with Iran, who they've already lobbed a missile into Iran to take out another Hezbollah leader. Again, I have no problem killing terrorists. I'm more well-trained on domestic jihadism and global terrorism than your average civilian, and I have no problem with those people being sent back to where they're from. I do have a big problem when you take them out by killing multiple, if not hundreds of thousands of innocent people, and you should have a problem with that too. However, we now have Zelensky wanting to put missiles deeper into Russia, expanding conflict. The Secret Service is telling us this. We have 21 million illegal migrants in this country here all at the same time, eating pets, eating the dogs, eating the cats. We have that happening. The Secret Service is now warning us about this. And all this leads to, these are problems. And how does our government solve problems? They print more money. So inflation's going to get worse, prices are going to get worse, wages are going to get harder to come by. It's going to be almost impossible to find a job come January from the way things are going right now. And more importantly, that money printer is going to go. That's the most important thing. If there's not enough money to refill the SPR, which there isn't, they're going to print more to do that, and they're going to have to do it if we expand into global conflict, because for us to be able to officially declare war against anyone through congressional process, we must have a fully stocked SPR. Right now, our Strategic Petroleum Reserve, SPR, is at a level of about between 10 and 14 days, and it's a guess because no one really knows. You're going to need 6 months of oil to fight a war at a bare minimum. So if we have to print more money to get more oil, what does that do to oil? Oil prices will certainly drop until this happens, but then they will spike immediately because if the government has to shut down usage and buy up as much oil that's available in the market, they're going to increase demand significantly while supply does not change. That is going to drive the prices of everything up because everything is delivered to your home or to the store via a truck, period. There are no Santa Claus that drop off products. They come through fuel. Now, as fuel rises while inflation rises, you start to get into hyperinflation. If the markets crash and coalesce with that exactly, you're going to enter into a depression. These are all very logical deductions to make from the situation at hand that we live in currently. So for the most part, that's what I've got for you today. I think that is a pretty good rundown of where we are and a good summary of what might happen. Now, of course, there's conversations about backroom deals and he knew this and that's a strategic play. That's for somebody else's show. Not that I don't buy into it, not that I disagree with it. It's just not what I'm into. I try to look at the things at hand because the situation we're in this country, you can sit around and eat popcorn all you like, but there's a very distinct factor that you're not going to be able to do that fairly soon. We need to start taking it into our own hands to allow people coming into this country to not feel friendly if they're not here legally. I'm not inciting violence or making any choice like that. But, why would we welcome a criminal into our home? Why are we not in an uproar? Chicago is starting to finally, but it's the city council meetings have like 150 people at it. There's 4.5 million people in that city. The entire city needs to let these politicians know that these people are not welcome here. No one is welcome here without, we aren't welcome in their country. Why should they be welcomed into ours? We have to start raising the awareness around this country at what's happening. Look around your neighborhoods. Look around on your drive to work. And when you work in a different city, watch that city. The look and feel of that city, the sound of that city is changing. You don't just hear English anymore. You hear multiple language being spoken everywhere you go. Go to any mall within a 20-mile radius of a major city. You will hear 4 to 6 languages being spoken, which I know is cool in Europe, but we don't have trains that interconnect our small nations. We are half of a continent. We should have our own culture, because when all these migrants come in, I don't mind new people in our country. If you want to come here and be American legally, I will open up my life to you. I will open up my arms and call you my brother. But when you want to come in here illegally and not assimilate and begin to change where I live and where I grew up, I have a real problem with that. And everyone in this country should have a real problem with that, because part of the demoralization process comes with changing culture. Has your culture changed in the last 30 years? I think the answer is overwhelmingly yes. When culture erodes, then you have a destabilized, demoralized society, which is exactly where we are. And ultimately, it becomes a problem as it becomes more noticeable, as things become, there are so many things that are so obvious to see that 99% of the world does not see them. And I don't feel like taking the heat for saying it and exposing it to you, but notice things. Look who's at the very core of everything, every problem in the world. Someone is the root cause. Look at the correlations. Look at your town where you live. It's not where you live anymore. It's where they live, and you're a participant. There are 20 million people have come across our border in 3 years. I would say less than 5% of them speak any form of English. These are not hard to find who they are. They are building your roofs. Yeah, there are people building roofs. There's people mowing lawns. There are also people robbing, stealing, and killing. There are a lot of them. And they're stealing pets, they're stealing animals, doing all that kind of stuff. But the real problem here is not new people in this country. We certainly have the space. We probably could have the resources if we had any sort of leadership and finance in this nation at all. Unfortunately, we have no resources for them. And more importantly, we shouldn't have the tolerance for them. Our culture is eroding. What is the American dream anymore? What does it mean to be an American? Does America even know that? You can't go anywhere without hearing Tejano music or seeing people in headdress. This is not American. And I'm not a racist person. I don't care what color you are, where you're from, who you pray to. I don't care. I do care that you're a legal citizen who wants to continue and maintain the 250-year history of American culture, which has spread light throughout the world. That's what I care about. So I'm going to wrap that up with that today. So these are times, and I'm going to get into the crypto thing from yesterday in just a moment. But as I do, these are the times to pray. Pray through your problems. Pray to God. Get discernment from God. What should we be doing? I don't have the answer. If I had the answer, I would be on a podium somewhere spreading the answer until I was imprisoned, which is what would happen if I actually shared what I think the answer is. But you would really need to start thinking about, what does it mean to be an American? What is the American culture? How do we define? These are the things you do in a company. You start a company. What's your culture? How do you want to build it? What's your ideal, customer, your ideal worker? What kind of attitude do you want towards customers? What is the American value vision? What is our cultural vision? We have none. It's gone. And the only way to get it back is to get it back by getting rid of new cultures that are influencing it. We need to eliminate and shut down our borders, and probably shut down migration altogether, and focusing on having new babies in this country, American children born on American soil to American culture, to be able to build a stronger nation. That comes through a foundation of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and faith in God Almighty. So continue to pray for this country, pray for yourselves, pray to God for courage. He never told you to be a coward. God told you to be strong and courageous, and that's exactly what this country needs right now. All right, enough of that tirade, enough of the soapbox. Let's get into last night's Twitter space on Liberty, Global Liberty, Financial, whatever it is. This was the biggest waste of 2.5 hours of my life that I've ever heard. I love President Trump. I loved hearing his take on things for the first 40 minutes. It was way too long. The interviewer was not good at all. He was not engaging. And after the first hour, it turned into a frat party with a bunch of guys laughing. Now, I just explained to you some real problems in this nation. And in the midst of it, we have our leadership just cracking jokes and laughing with crypto bros for 2.5 hours. Now, I love Bitcoin. There are a few crypto projects that I think have some use in the world. For the most part, they're functions. They are software plays. If they actually wanted to build a better financial world, you would use Bitcoin as the foundation for the monetary policy and build on layer 2 of Bitcoin. A lot of these crypto projects are just greed-induced by venture capitalists saying, don't build a layer 2 project because we can't make as much money. We'll give you 15 million to build some coins. Just give us 40% of the coins and we'll dump them in the market after you have a marketing campaign out there fooling people into thinking that they're going to be trillionaires off of this crypto. 99.9% of crypto is a pump and dump scam. And I explain this very simply. You have two pathways to launching a crypto coin. One is called a fair launch, which is usually done on proof of work, where you actually have to work like Bitcoin. Nobody got Bitcoin for free. Zero. Even Satoshi had to mine Bitcoin to earn Bitcoin. That's a meritocracy. Proof of stake, or what most crypto is no different than central banking. We're going to pre-mine it, right? So Planned Parenthood, pre-mining. All these things are scams. They are printing money, creating demand through marketing vehicles, which, by the way, have zero regulation in the SEC. They can tell you my 50-cent coin is going to go to $10,000 tomorrow. You're going to believe it. You're going to buy it. You become their exit liquidity, and that coin never goes to 10,000. More often than not, it goes to zero. That's how it works. These are legalized pump and dump scams that no one has broke down on. In my estimation, they've done that to keep people out of Bitcoin because there's a lot of lies that exist and no one does anything about it. And the crypto space by itself, there are some good projects. There are some really good technologies, but the entire, I've spent years going through this and the whole thing of, this is faster and this is cheaper. Cool. You know who fast and cheap matters to? The elite. To everyone else, we don't need faster transactions. We don't need cheaper transactions. We need sound money. And if you're going to use crypto for money, it better be sound, scarce, finite, limited supply, finite supply, never more than 21 million. But crypto projects are faster and they are cheaper. And there is definitely a place for a few of them in certain areas of the world. So let me put that out there. I'm not a crypto bro. I'm definitely a Bitcoiner. But I'm very unopinionated. I'm telling you this from a factual standpoint that a majority of crypto projects out there are simply just pump and dump scams for those at the top of the pyramid to get a bunch of free money, convince you that it's going to be the next big thing, which none of them have been. I'll remind you, the next closest price to Bitcoin is Ethereum at 2,800 and Bitcoin's at 60,000. There's a reason for that because it's finite and scarce, and the system works flawlessly at 305 exahash, which makes it the largest supercomputer that the world has ever seen. There's really no need for these other projects. That's the reality. Now, this crypto space last night was really defining to this. So if you don't believe me, watch any speech that came from Bitcoin 2024, any interview that came from Bitcoin 2024. These people are rocket scientists, money managers, established entrepreneurs, technologists, a very serious tone and topic to a very serious topic at hand, which is the money system and the money supply. You will get a feel of maturity and intelligence from anything you watch from Bitcoin 2024, period. Crypto, on the other hand, is a bunch of kids. And these kids are very smart and they're very good with technology, but they're fairly naive. And what they want to do is become the next Mark Zuckerberg. There is no CEO of Bitcoin. There is no board of directors. It's confusing for people to understand that something actually decentralized could exist in this overly centralized world. But what you heard last night was a very immature interviewer, nice enough guy. He seemed nice, 30 years old. He's about to have a kid. Congratulations. I think somehow the gods have blessed you by meeting Donald Trump to blow up your name, and I think that's great. I'm happy for you. But this was a very immature thing, and at the end of the 2.5 hours, the end result was, okay, Bitcoin is the winner. I mean, that's what I got from it. They gave almost no detail of what the project would be. They didn't describe what it would work on. They said they talked about the problems they wanted to solve with Web3, which will never be decentralized. They will say legally it's considered decentralized, but if it's hosted on the servers in your company, which they all are, by the way, Bitcoin is hosted on millions of computing units throughout the world. It is truly decentralized. But when it's hosted on your computer system and there's a human involved who has any moniker of greed, someone can infiltrate and have them make changes. That's just a simple fact of life. Don't be naive and think that people, especially venture capitalists or politicians, would want to build a system that they don't have some sort of backdoor control with. Period. So what I got for it, it was immature and playful. I mean, it was definitely fun. There were some parts I laughed. Don Jr. is pretty funny. I enjoyed the time that he was there. But what I got from this very long Twitter space that took forever to get to the point, most people were sitting. Most of the audience wanted to hear Trump. When he got off, the attendance dropped in half. At that point, everyone wanted to know, what is this project and how can I get involved and should I get involved? Give me some details. So they had Mr. Witkoff there, who's a massive real estate baron, and he's very excited about it because I'm speaking the way he did, indescriptively, because I have these guys, and these are some good guys, and they know what they're doing, and I hate paying real estate people and paperwork people, so I want to be able to do my real estate transactions with less fees. Like, it's exactly, if you've been following me at all, when they came out with this World Liberty financial deal a while back, I said, number one, this is probably going to be run on top of the Bitcoin blockchain or the Ethereum blockchain. One of those two blockchains will be the base layer. It's probably going to end up being smart contracts for real estate transactions. That's exactly what they said. I said that. I said it would not be an existing company, that they will build their own platform, and that's exactly what they said. So they are, from what I can gather from 2.5 hours of being a fairly smart guy, they're building a smart contract platform for them to be able to transact real estate without paying real estate agents, which I actually think is a good thing. I am very hesitant of real world assets going on the blockchain, just simply due to the fact that there was one statement that Cody or Corey or whatever his name is, the core developer they brought on, the first question the interviewer asked him is, what are the security procedures? The guy never answered the question. Proof of stake is very easy to hack at a large enough scale. Proof of work, Bitcoin, is unhackable. So I want you to keep that in mind. When you have 305 exahash of power that's creating a force field around a blockchain, there's no cracking that code. When it's some programmers in their own private server and proof of stake model, that is hackable. And that's not a conspiracy theory. You can look that up in 5 seconds. Go on fidelity.com and say, what's the difference between proof of stake and proof of work? They will tell you the biggest difference between proof of stake and proof of work is security. So if I'm going to put my real world assets on the blockchain, I absolutely want that to be done on Bitcoin so that no hacker can steal my title. When you take real world assets and you put them on a blockchain, you're digitizing real world assets, which opens up the door for criminal use. Period, point blank. There's no debate. Anyone telling you I'm a liar by saying this, or I'm a fudder by saying this, is someone who's trying to make money selling you garbage. Real world assets on the blockchain are going to happen. It's absolutely inevitable, but it must be done in the most secure environment in the world. By the way, there's a guy named David Webb. David Webb wrote a book that I've been sharing for a year now called The Great Taking. This is a hedge fund manager who moved to Sweden or Switzerland and bought acres of land and lives off the land because he's terrified of what's coming. And having been in the rooms with guys like George Soros and such, he basically said, what they're going to do to usher in everything is use a stablecoin for a CBDC, put your real world assets online and steal them all. Right? That's pretty much what The Great Taking says if you listen to David Webb at all. So these are very dangerous areas to be in. And I'm actually glad that somebody with a public name who has conservative values would be looking into this to do it the right way. But from what I heard last night, that's not really the case. What they did say they're going to do is they're going to launch a stablecoin. And then eventually real world assets for real estate. Both of those two things are exactly what I called that they would be when they announced this project, with very low security. What I got from this, Eric Trump came on, who's for a living, okay, I'm a deal maker, I'm an entrepreneur. For a living, I am very good at finding out how smart you are within 5 minutes. I can tell when you're holding back, or I can tell when you're pushing forward because you have nothing else left in the brain. I am an expert in determining even if I don't know anything about it, I can determine how much you know about something just by asking you questions or listening to you talk. It was very obvious to me that Donald Trump knows nothing about crypto or Bitcoin. I was 12 rows away. He doesn't need to. That's not a knock on him. It was very clear to me that Don Jr. knows very little about crypto or Bitcoin. And it was very clear through Eric Trump, who they pawned off as he's the expert here. Barron never came on. I actually do believe Barron knows a hell of a lot about crypto, but he never spoke. Now, when Eric came on, he said something very telling. What people say when they talk tells a lot about what they believe. The words they use, the names they drop, the phrases they use, all tell you something about their level of intelligence, expertise, or history. And when Eric spoke, he said, I was really brought to this space by Michael Saylor, and you should listen to Michael Saylor's presentation at Bitcoin 2024. I'm not making that up. I'm almost not paraphrasing that. That's pretty much exactly what Eric Trump said. Now, if you know anything about Michael Saylor, he's worth billions. He's one of the smartest investors out there. Depending on your appetite for people, I don't really judge people. I look for smart people for their information, not their personality, but a lot of people don't like him, and that's fine. What comes out of his mouth is pure intelligence. He is literally he has a degree in astrophysics. So very intelligent, very wealthy guy who went all in on Bitcoin around the same time I did when I was kind of tiptoeing in. So a lot of us didn't get it until 2020, 2021, and now we're starting to see it, and we've pushed in that direction. But if you're familiar with Michael Saylor, you'll know that he has one significant saying about crypto. There is no second best. There is Bitcoin, and pardon my French, or shitcoin. And that's exactly what this market truly is. There are definitely a few projects in crypto that are going to make it, but primarily they're just a bunch of tokens, beanie babies, and pump and dump schemes. And to be honest with you, Trump's project doesn't sound any different. So a stable coin is part of their program. They talked about, they pinpointed what I've been saying about stable coins forever. The stable coins will buy US treasuries. So they're using Trump's marketing power to be able to get people interested in their stable coin. So that stable coin can buy more of US bad debt to keep the dollar alive even longer. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I really don't think that's a bad. I mean, the people who are saying you need to kill the dollar today and get rid of it. You have no idea the desolation that'll occur from that. The demolition of this economy will occur instantly if our dollar falls. So that's actually a good thing. So stablecoin, eventually smart contracts. They leaked that it will be on the Ethereum blockchain, which is the most used blockchain in the world. I don't have any problem with that at all. And then ultimately, they were going to offer a governance coin to accredited investors. Now, a governance coin has no resale value. It's going to be investing more money into something so you have a vote in a system that you don't understand. This was a complete waste of time, hosted on a show called Rug Radio. I think if you're one of those people looking for comms, here's the comms. Buy Bitcoin, this is a rug pull, period. That's what I took from it. It made crypto seem very infantile, which it kind of is. And it was straight up marketing, just trying to gather people into a Twitter account, into a new sign-on portal. This was a fundraising activity. Even Trump, I'm not under the illusion that Trump cares about Bitcoin or crypto at all, and that's not anything I've ever said. I think it's fascinating it's being talked about so much in this election, but both his appearance at Bitcoin 2024 and this World Liberty Financial program he's running, these are fundraising campaigns. He's going to make a ton of money when you buy his altcoin that's not going to do anything, or you invest in his governance coin that's never going to be worth. These are contributions to the campaign. Stablecoin may have something. They didn't say whether or not they would pay interest on it. They alluded to yield. That's not a bad strategy, using a stablecoin to get 1 or 2% on your money every year, like a savings account. So I'm not going to make a statement on where it's going to be because they didn't give any information for me to make an analysis on. The analysis I took from the information received is that this is a sloppy project that is months, if not years away from this being built out. And they've put together some decent people on the team, but these are all altcoin crypto bros. So he's got a project with them, there is no project with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is its own self-governance. It cannot be stopped. I don't care how many, I really don't care how many horror stories, ghost stories you hear about Bitcoin going to zero with Tether. These are all scammy phrases being used by crypto scammers who scam all the time. That is just how I've watched this for so long. I'll be happy to debate any of you on this show any given time. There are no network effects built into these things. The reason Bitcoin is so powerful is because millions of computers around the world work on it simultaneously. No network effect, you have no security. So an unsecure project with stable coins, smart contracts looped in through Ethereum, along with some sort of governance contract. And then Eric Trump said, our first company is going to be the Trump Resort golf courses. We're going to take crypto. So this is a payment system. This is really a cheeky project from what I can gather. I'm not going to say it's good or bad. I'll tell you, I'm not going to get involved in this project at all. My money has way better places to go than this, and we need every penny that we have. So that's kind of my theory on this is as much as I'm going to talk about World Liberty Financial. I think it's a hokey project. I think it's designed to get the votes of the crypto people, which actually are going to lose votes from Bitcoiners. It's a delicate balance that goes through these things. I don't join gangs. I have opinions, and if you want to hear them, I'll share them. But I don't join gangs. When it comes to crypto, I'm a Bitcoin only person, but I'm certainly not a Bitcoiner. I don't have all of my money in Bitcoin. I own gold, silver, raw land, oil and gas investments, the VIX, and Bitcoin. So for my crypto allocation, I will put it in Bitcoin, and I'll be more than happy to have slow and expensive payments that are worth hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in the future, as opposed to a fun project I can put $50 into where 1 out of 1 million people are going to make $1 million on it and everybody else can lose their $50. That's pretty much crypto and the entire analysis. I think that the interesting thing is that all the rumors were that the founders of the project would hold 70% of the coin. They, of course, said that was misinformation. I don't think that's the case. I think that's how they designed it. I think that any crypto bro who has their hands on the Trump family knows how much money is coming in. And I think when that leaked out to the market, they changed the structure to be 63% of this project will be sold to the general public. 17% of it be held or be used for incentives into the project. And I'm sure that they're using that number so that everyone who follows 17 will buy into it. And then 20% will be retained by the founders. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but to me, it was a huge turnoff. It was a very unserious event at a very serious time in U.S. politics, which is needed. I love to joke around. Anyone who knows me knows how much I love to laugh. But these are very serious times, and this is a very, very unserious project. From everything that I gathered from not just the project and the conversation, the sloppiness of the interview, the immaturity of people who were there, the rose-colored glasses about crypto taking over the world. That's rose-colored glasses. The U.S. dollar is going nowhere. Trump has made that apparent. National currencies are never going to go away. However, Bitcoin is the best opportunity for decentralized, non-government money, and it will be worth a lot of money in the future because it continues to grow despite the fact that they are currently rigging the system with ETFs who are buying, and I know this firsthand, that they are buying through white glove services at Coinbase. So if you're wealthy, you can buy directly from a miner. It doesn't impact the price, and your buddy next to you can keep the price low until that supply is gone. That supply is almost gone, and the demand is only going up. So I think the price makes the most sense there. There are some plays in crypto that make sense. I'll never promote them. So if you ever get a fake account asking you to give me, quote unquote, me crypto, that's absolutely not me. You can keep your crypto. I don't want it. You want to send me Bitcoin, I'll take it. But at the same time, from a perspective of 2.5 hours of Americans' time, I think it was completely wasted on a nebulous project that was very, very poorly explained, if at all. And we had to tie the knots together ourselves to figure out exactly what the hell they were trying to do. And I think that overall, I think it was sort of an embarrassment for the entire crypto and Bitcoin space. I think that new people could have gone there. They could have learned something. They could have, gotten a detail of what crypto is and how it works, but it was the same watered down, hokey crypto boy explanation of how they're going to make everything better because, they're going to make everything better. People needed education. There was no education there. So that's what I have for you here today. I have a little bit of time here. I will disclose this to you too. There's a online radio podcast network that I do a lot of interviews on called TNT Radio in Australia. These guys have been fighting for free speech. They're all over the internet. They're in America and every other country. And right now they are going through the battle of their life through censorship from the government and from their investors. And they may have to close their doors on Friday. So I'm going to do a gloves off interview at 12:20 a.m. in 3 hours here at Texas time and just talk to them and see what's going on. But I'm going to do an on-air interview with them and hopefully help them because there's no way in the world anyone should tolerate any radio station, network, TV network, podcaster who is expressing their opinion in the world. You can easily change the channel. You don't have to shut them down. So I've been on there probably 30 times on multiple different shows, and I'll be on the Mike Ryan show tonight at 12:20. So please pray for them as they go through this very difficult time. Okay. So if there's any questions, I have the chat open. I got that what do they call that? Doc fixed in this software here. So if you have any questions I can answer for you before we go here, I don't have a ton of time left. I'll be more than happy to do so. The book I was trying to remember, The Great Taking. Yes, Michelle, The Great Take. I advise everyone on planet Earth. It's totally free. David Webb is worth a couple $billion. He doesn't care about money from the book. He wrote the book to help you understand how financial markets are rigged and controlled and how they plan to demolish them in order to steal your sovereignty and money. And that is that book is life. It's on thegreattaking.com or .org. I would read the book. There is definitely a documentary on YouTube called The Great Taking by David Webb. It's about an hour and 10 minutes or so, but it covers all the big points of the book, but it's probably 50% of what you can get from the book. Very well written, very well thought out. It's about 2 decades worth of financial experience, and a big warning for what's to come. Bitcoin. I started buying Bitcoin at $25 a Bitcoin. Bitcoin by itself, there's 21 million that exist. Every one of them breaks down into 100 million subsets called Satoshis. You can buy the subset. You don't need to buy the coin. And it all goes up or it all goes down the same way. And Saylor says he sees a $13 million Bitcoin by 2040. I don't disagree. But at the same time, anything in this world can go to zero. Anything. Out of all the digital assets that exist today, Bitcoin is by far, through physics, logic, finance, and mathematics, by far the least likely to go to zero out of all crypto that exists. I don't believe that any bank is going to use Bitcoin for its monetary system because it has no control, and that's exactly why I like Bitcoin. No one has control of it. I also don't believe that any bank is going to use a corporation who launches a altcoin in the market and use that for their financial system either. They're going to build their own because they're not that difficult to build, and banks have a ton of money, and they can easily recruit your developers, download your node in your system. They can actually anyone in the world can download Bitcoin. You can go download the entire system with every transaction in a node right now. It's free. You can go do it. There's a company called Caspa who did that, and they're trying to say they've built a better Bitcoin. They have no network effect, no security, and almost no one mining it. The time has passed for that big thing to happen. There will be little crypto projects that come out, and they're crafty, they're good for payments, they're good for all these other things, but they're never going to flip Bitcoin. Anybody who tells you something's going to flip Bitcoin they want you to be their exit liquidity. That's the truth behind the market. So it doesn't look like we have any other questions here tonight, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. Thank you all for coming tonight. God bless you all. God bless your families. God bless this nation. I'm Eric Rice. This is the Rice Report. We will see you again, not tomorrow. I have men's ministry at my house tomorrow and a big presentation for a bunch of investors on Bitcoin on Thursday. But maybe Thursday night we'll hop back on here and just see what happens. But until that time, I pray for all of you to find time with God. I pray for you to prepare your soul and your spirit for the chaos which is mathematically brewing right now. This isn't speculation. I've given you nothing but information about this country right now. Prepare your soul for what's to come because God has bigger plans for you than worrying about things that happen online. Love your families. Take care of your community. Protect your country. Watch your money. Be a good person. Pray to God. I love you all. God bless you all. And we'll see you next time. Have a good evening, everyone.